My first month on the job went without incident. I was hired as head chef, seeing how Ray, the previous chef, quit unexpectedly. The pub, which was originally built in the late 1700s, then rebuilt in 1823, is located in downtown Ancaster, a quiet village in southern Ontario. The pub seats roughly 60 people, and boasts live music 4 nights a week. It's a cozy room, and the food is fantastic, if I do say so myself. Sometime last week, as I was delivering a tray of steaming hot glasses to the bar, I saw my first ghost. It was a Sunday, I remember. The pub was dead. Only one table remained. The patrons were finishing their drinks and discussing how they would split the bill. Sitting alone at the end of the bar was a woman who may have been in her early 40s. She was well-dressed and well-postured, and wore a large, broad-brimmed hat and a thin, gauzy white dress. There was a sadness surrounding her, but I was busy working, so I paid her little notice. All I wanted was for this shift to end, and pronto, so I could enjoy a cold, refreshing pint. Brenna, the bartender that evening, hurried past me, all the while ignoring the woman sitting at the bar who was without a drink. I think that woman needs a drink, I said to Brenna. Or her bill. I regretted these words as soon as I'd spoken them. Never tell a bartender how to do their job, right? That said, I couldn't figure out why Brenna, who's a wonderful barkeep, would allow a customer to sit unserved for so long. Brenna glanced towards the bar where the woman was seated and frowned. "There's no one sitting at the bar," she said, sounding very much annoyed. I thought Brenna was teasing me, since I'm the new guy and all. But when I checked, the woman sitting at the bar was gone. I was stunned. I wanted to say something clever, but for the first time in my life, I was lost for words. Instead, I made a joking gesture like I was kidding with her, then scampered back to the kitchen to finish my work. When the kitchen was closed and my work completed, I bounced back to the bar, anxiously awaiting my after-work pint. I sat tepidly at the bar, drinking my beer. My mind was racing. I couldn't stop thinking about that woman wearing the hat. Was she a hallucination? Probably she was. I chose to sit at the opposite end of the bar, just in case. That said, it's a modest-sized bar, so I was still within spitting distance of where the woman was sitting. I finished my beer and soon forgot about the mysterious woman. I was ready for home. I was putting on my coat and scarf, bracing for the icy weather waiting for me outside, when I spotted the woman from the corner of my eye. "Gotcha!" I snapped, looking across the bar to where she was sitting. Only, when I checked, she had vanished. I rubbed my eyes and shook my head. I must be losing it, I thought to myself, unhappily. Maybe it was stress. Wearily, I left for home. I couldn't get the woman sitting in the bar out of my head. Was she real, or was my mind playing tricks on me? Maybe this was some elaborate prank the other staff members were playing on me. It could be, but that was highly unlikely. Maybe I really was losing it. When I returned to work a couple nights later, I felt better. It was trivia night, which meant the pub would be packed. It was. Work was beyond strenuous. The kitchen, which was hot enough to scald a loon, looked more like a war zone than a place to prepare food. Sometime after 8 o'clock, when it died down a bit, I took my dinner break. I sat at the edge of the bar and ate my burger in silence. I was famished. As I was dipping my french fries into a giant glob of ketchup, lost in my thoughts, I spotted the woman sitting at the bar. Beside her was a group of large men, who were drinking and roaring and having a good time. This woman, on the other hand, remained eerily quiet. It was like she wanted to go unnoticed. As Brenna whizzed past me, I motioned to the woman sitting at the bar. Brenna shot me a stern look. "What now?" she snapped. It was obvious she didn't like me. Maybe because I was filthy and I smelled like fish bait. "You're pointing to the only spot no one's sitting in. You do know this, right?" "Huh?" When I peeked past the men drinking at the bar, the mysterious woman was gone. I gasped. Brenna, on the other hand, muttered some choice words under her breath and sauntered off to serve some drinks. I was too frightened to so much as even glance across the bar to where, up until a moment ago, the woman wearing the hat was seated. But if she wasn't really sitting there, then how come her bar stool remained vacant? This was peculiar because the pub was jam-packed. Every table and chair were filled except for hers. It was as if some unknown force was preventing people from sitting there. This made zero sense. I was becoming unhinged. Nothing made sense to me at that moment. As I was heading back to the kitchen, I felt a pair of eyes following me. I knew who it was. It was the woman sitting at the bar. When I glanced over my shoulder, sure enough, she was back sitting at the bar. When I took a step toward her, however, she disappeared again. Poof. Just like that, she was gone. I resisted the urge to scream. Instead, I scooted back to the kitchen where I belonged. As impassively as possible, I asked Dave, the line cook who was working with me that night, about the haunted history of the pub. I had heard rumors of such, but chalked them up to folklore. Dave ignored me. Instead, he put 5 pounds of chicken wings into the deep fryer, then pulled out a tray of nachos from the oven. I asked him again. Dave remained silent for an uncomfortable length of time. Eventually, he looked up from the plate of nachos he was dressing and scrutinized me. "Are you serious?" he asked. "Or are you just being a jerk?" This wasn't the response I was expecting. When I mentioned the woman sitting at the bar, his eyes lit up. "You've seen her?" he asked. He was unable to contain his excitement. "Wow, that's cool. I've only ever heard of her." We went back to work. Dave pulled the wings from the deep fryer, shook off the grease, applied the appropriate sauces, then plated them. I rang the bell, and the server quickly came to retrieve them. The subject of the woman sitting at the bar didn't come up again until sometime after work. Sitting at the table closest to the bar, I bought Dave an after-work pint, which he guzzled down with glee. Afterward, I ordered us another round. I wanted to loosen his lips. She was sitting right there. I pointed to the stool at the end of the bar, next to the warmly decorated fireplace with the rose-colored stockings hanging from the mantel. Dave peeked over my shoulder. He smiled nervously. Then he leaned in close to me and whispered, "Have you ever been to the basement?" I shook my head. The basement is where we store kegs and random cleaning supplies, but mostly it's where junk goes to die. The next round of drinks arrived. We cheersed. Dave took a generous gulp, wiped his mouth on the sleeve of his Metallica shirt, then looked me dead in the eyes. "This pub is definitely haunted," he said, just above a whisper. "Has been for as long as anyone can remember. Personally, I haven't seen any ghosts. But Ray told me some stories. Creepy stories. Which included this lady you're describing. Ray hated this place, especially the basement. Probably why he quit." Dave paused to drink. "Do you know the history of this pub? This town, in fact?" I didn't. The town of Ancaster's old. Well, old for this part of the world. Across the street's where they kept the gallows. That's where they hanged war criminals, traitors, and your run-of-the-mill ruffians. They hanged a lot of men during the War of 1812. They were ruthless about it, too. Did you know that the bloodiest sentence they ever handed down to this day happened here? They executed 15 men, all of whom were charged with treason. Gets better. These same prisoners resided right here in this very building, waiting for those nasty nooses to snap their necks like twigs. The most dangerous men were detained in the basement, where they were tortured and tormented and God knows what else. I've been down there. It's creepy as hell. The floor is gray dirt. The walls are dark and dingy. Plus it smells musty and old. I hate it down there. Dave's words filled me with dread. More beer was required, I realized, so I ordered us another round. We sat in silence waiting for the beer to arrive. I was trying to wrap my mind around what David just told me. I honestly knew nothing of this town's twisted past. It was around this time that I spotted the woman sitting at the end of the bar. Only now she was facing me. My stomach filled with butterflies. Fear was creeping into my body like an unwanted guest. The beer arrived. We drank, then Dave continued where he left off, and I did my best to ignore the apparition staring at me.
There must be a record somewhere that shows the total number of prisoners executed here,
Dave said in between sips of beer.
Whatever it is, it's sure a hell of a lot. Maybe that's why this place is haunted.
I pondered all this for a moment. Up until a few days ago, the idea of ghosts being real seemed ludicrous. I've made fun of people for believing in such hogwash. Now look at me. I'm discussing the ghosts of dead prisoners while being surveyed by a woman sitting at the bar that apparently only I can see. I stole another glance over my shoulder. The woman was indeed watching me. Dave looked at me curiously.
She's back, isn't she?
He asked. I nodded. It took all my energy not to completely freak out. This was all new to me. Dave turned to face the empty bar stool, where the ghost woman was sitting, and stared for an incredible length of time. He was squinting.
Damn, I see nothing,
he said.
But I do feel something strange coming over me. Probably my imagination.
Dave finished his last swallow of ale. Then he started gathering his things. His face was pale. His eyes seemed far away. He thanked me for the beer, said goodbye to Brenna, then left. He quit the next day. By now I had a decent beer buzz, which under normal circumstances would have been great, but not on this particular evening. I was downright spooked. I could still feel the ghost woman scrutinizing me with her dour, dead eyes, which added to my misery. I needed to split, and fast, before I lost my mind altogether. I began organizing my belongings, doing my best to ignore the ashen lady staring at me from her seat at the bar. As I was about to leave the pub, Brenna came rushing over. "Tony, can you please go down to the basement and bring me up a keg of Coors Light?" She seemed flustered. She had been waiting on a large table who seemed hell-bent on partying all night. Suddenly, I found myself trembling like an earthquake. My hands were cold and clammy. My legs as sturdy as a unicycle. The last thing I wanted to do was venture down into that basement. Not after what David just told me. But I did it anyways. What choice did I have? The stairwell leading down to the basement was close-fitting. I'm tall, so I had to crouch to avoid knocking my head clean off. I descended slowly and cautiously down the wobbly wooden stairs, trying my best to be brave. It wasn't working. I was scared shitless. The basement was poorly lit. The air was thick and gross. I could smell mold plus something else I couldn't quite describe. If haunted had an odor, this would be it. A discarded Budweiser sign lay in twisted ruins at the bottom of the stairs. Stacks of cardboard boxes lined the stone brick walls, which were the color of dead fish. As I reached the bottom step, I tripped over a dead rat, causing me to whack my head on the edge of the ceiling. It hurt like hell. I kicked the rat carcass across the room and rubbed my aching head. At the opposite end of the basement, soiled in silvery spiderwebs, was a mop bucket. It was filthy. Next to it was a rusted old meat slicer that looked to be 40 years old at least. Straight ahead of me, leaning haphazardly against the wall, were the kegs. I found the keg labeled Coors Light. I bent down and carefully picked it up, trying not to whack my head on the low ceiling again. As I was standing at the base of the stairs, ready to return to the main floor, I felt a cool breeze brush against my face. Then the basement lights started flickering on and off in sudden flashes. I heard sobbing. The sound was close. Someone was down here with me. My anxiety level was skyrocketing. Then came a strange, garbling noise which scared me stupid. I dropped the keg on my big toe, crushing it. The keg clanked and clacked and crawled along the grimy basement floor before coming to an abrupt halt. After dropping an inflammatory F-bomb, I scanned the vicinity, searching for whoever was down there with me. That's when I felt something touch the back of my neck. I spun around in surprise. No one was there. By now, my heart was threatening to explode from my chest, and even though the temperature in the basement was frigid, I was sweating buckets. Fear had stolen over me. The walls were closing in. I was becoming claustrophobic. I was scared out of my mind. I took a deep breath and held it for 6 seconds, trying to regain some composure. Then I let out a nervous laugh and started ascending the stairs. That's when I heard a voice cry out for help. This put a jump to my step. I was halfway up the stairs before I realized I'd forgotten the keg. I scampered back down the stairs, trying to ignore the terror growing inside of me, and fetch the damn keg. That's when I heard the voice again. This time, I stopped to have a listen. I knew this was a bad idea, but I did it anyways. I couldn't help myself. Someone was sobbing. The sound was coming from behind the stairwell. I turned my attention to the spandrel behind the stairwell, and saw the most extraordinary sight. I gazed, mouth ajar, petrified. What I saw has forever altered my perception of reality. I'm still trying to come to grips with it. Maybe that's what compelled me to share this story. Make it official, so to speak. As I crept toward the stairwell, I noticed a group of gaunt-looking men huddled together, hiding in the cubbyhole behind the stairs. They were chained to the wall, clad in wretched rags, which matched their filthy, malnourished faces. I knew they weren't real because they were shimmering like a mirage in the desert. Yet they were. Right in front of me. The sight of these men broke my heart. I don't care what these men did. This was simply inhumane. I squinted, hoping to get a better look at them. The men were neck to neck, grunting and groaning. One man was weeping profusely, his head buried in his bloodied, soiled hands. Then I heard bullwhips cracking, followed by a chorus of screams. I let out a pathetic whimper, and when I did, the men dissolved into thin air. By now, I was feeling sick to my stomach. I rushed to the bottom of the stairs and looked up at the speck of light peeking from behind the entrance. Sluggishly, I began my journey back up the slender stairwell. I heard bullwhips cracking again, followed by tortured, grief-stricken pleas for mercy, and I almost jumped out of my skin. This was getting ridiculous. I needed to leave this basement as quickly as possible. So, with the keg snug in my arms, I scooted upstairs and slammed the basement door shut once and for all. The urge to break down and cry was tremendous. I'd never been so scared in my life. When I delivered the keg to Brenna, she looked at me peculiarly. "Jeez, you look like you've seen a ghost," she said. I let out one lowly laugh. Then I scrambled for my belongings and beelined for the exit. As I was leaving, something compelled me to stop, and I turned around. It was now past closing time. The pub was silent. The chairs sat on top of tables, ready for their nightly slumber. The bar stools rested empty and taciturn. All except for one. The woman sitting at the bar reappeared. She was looking straight at me, the corners of her lips raised in what could have been a smile. For a moment, I simply regarded her. Her auburn hair spilled out from her eloquent straw hat, her hairs like black pearls. I waved goodbye to her as I left, and collapsed on my bed the moment I got home. I slept like the dead. The following morning, I sent this email to Rachel, the owner of the Coach and Lantern. Dear Rachel, although my time at the Coach and Lantern has been short-lived, it's been both enjoyable and educational. You run a fine pub. That said, I hereby give you my 2 weeks' notice. Although I am grateful for the opportunity you've provided me, I feel it is time for a career change. I want to write horror stories. Yes, it's time I write about ghosts and haunted houses and evil spirits and such. Sounds like fun, right? One last thing. I won't be venturing into the basement again. Ever. Best of luck to you and your pub. Tony Starr. Today's story was written by Marcus Starr. Marcus is a very talented author. He posts on Reddit as Call Me Starr. I'll include a link in the description below. And also include a link to his new book. He has a collection of creepy short stories out right now on Amazon titled Monsters in the Moonlight. So I hope you'll all check that out on Amazon. Please look at the description below for the link to Monsters in the Moonlight by Marcus Starr. Become a channel member today for early access, bonus videos, and special emojis only available to members. Check out the description below or click the join button for more info. Today's video was supported by patrons like Mark from Earth, Crimson Muse, Joy Burton, Diane Showers, Mark Zawal, Cheryl James, Pick Your Sticker, Teddy Dog, Clue 404, Mamakato, Dante Kincaid, Zarin Ray, Angela Donovan, Blarian50, Devin Kyle, Timothy Baird, Ajeti, Bert Turner, Bajani Aspinall, Michael Pierce, Big Joe, Gary Harkonnen, LaDonna Spivey, Scott Tanaka, Tom Stewart, Sherman Davis, Bryce Shelton, Susan McClendon, Elise Batiste, Lisa and the Cult Jam, Open Circuit, Fabulavore, Raymond Jaggers, That Darn Fox, Raison Detra, Kai Gaming 99, Windy Burns, The Wendigo, Michael Squishy Park, The Gemstar, Vault 77 Citizen, Puppy Dan, Clovis Wolf, Elder Jelm, Derek Prey, Elder Being, KC Hawaii, Rob T, Tragic Mermaid, Darren Fishnaller, Cloves Anoya Harris, Roe Underwood, Florida Man Luke, Bethany's Mom, Winter's Kiss, Sam Brooke, The White Stag, Corgi Connection, No Name, Marta Cara, Professor Elm, Kathy Barrickman, Cybard Sands, Steve Hennessy, Melanie Sanders, The Archivist, Rob Smith, Term 4, Naz Razio, J. David Wellman Jr., Parker Lewis, Monica Moya, D-Master 311, Britt the Alchemist, Taylor the Fox, Holly Howarth, Julia McWilliam, Lilypad, Miss Peltier, and Diego Rodriguez. If you would like to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/Jordan Group Horror. As a patron, you'll get access to bonus videos, content, and a Discord channel. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward. And if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you which will be featured in a Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow. It really does help out a lot. And see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.